All right, hi everyone. Welcome to Genesis 3. This is a very popular chapter. This is going to be talking about the fall. So I'd say let's just get straight into it. I'd rather just not like wait around. But yeah, Genesis 3, Adam and Eve sent out from the garden. Verse 1. Now the serpent was more crafty than any beast of the field which Yahweh God has made. And he said to the woman, so first, remember, the serpent is Satan. It's just like kind of like what he symbolized as throughout the Bible. So then he asked Eve, the woman, indeed, God has said, you shall not eat from any tree of the garden. And the woman said to the serpent, from the fruit of the trees of the garden we may eat, but from the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, God said, you shall not eat from it, and you shall not touch it, lest you die. So, first, Satan questions God and what he has said. Eve reaffirms it. Then Satan says, you will surely not die. So that's the first lie. For God knows that in the day you eat from it, your eyes will be opened, which is true, and you will be like God. That's the second lie, knowing good and evil, which also was true. Then the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was a delight to the eyes, and that the tree was desirable to make one wise. So he tempted Eve with what he said, and then saw, she was also tempted by the fact that it could have made her like God and wise in her eyes. So she took from the fruit and ate it, and she also gave to her husband with her, so gave it to Adam, and he ate. And the eyes of both of them were opened, and they knew that they were naked, and they sewed fig leaves together and made themselves loin coverings. So it was desirable to the eyes, desirable to the mouth with taste. So she ate it, so they realized that they were naked, which of course the lie of Satan of them being like God ended up being a fat lie because they ended up being full of shame and guilt for what they had done, and also for the fact that they were naked. So, of course, that wasn't exactly what happened with what Satan said. And of course, the you will surely not die is, of course, a lie because look what exactly happened to all of us. I mean, everyone in history, everyone dies. So, that was just a big fat lie. Then we move on to verse 8. Then they heard the sound of Yahweh God walking in the garden in the cool of the day, and the man and his wife hid themselves from the presence of Yahweh God in the midst of the trees of the garden. So they hid behind like a tree or a bush. Yahweh God called to the man, to Adam, and said to him, where are you? And of course, God already knew where Adam was, but he asked, of course, in a relational sense, not like he literally didn't know. He asked for, because remember, God desires relationship, not autonomy. So Adam said, I heard the sound of you in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked. So he admits that he was afraid because he was naked, so he hid. And of course, he's not supposed to know that. So God asked, who told you that you were naked? Have you eaten from the tree of which I commanded you not to eat? So Adam doesn't even deny it. Adam just says, he just shifts the blame. So the woman whom you gave to be with me, she gave to me from the tree, and I ate. So first, he indirectly blames God because he says, the woman whom you gave to be with me, so that he might be implying that God gave him like the wrong woman, or like the woman wasn't suitable for him, that it is indirectly God's fault. And then he directly blames Eve also because the woman gave him from the tree and he ate. So directly blames Adam, indirectly blames God. And God doesn't even answer, he just ignores it. And Yahweh God said to the woman, what is this you have done? Of course, asking in a relational sense, not that he literally doesn't know what she had done. And the woman said, the serpent deceived me and I ate. So she directly shifts the blame to the serpent. And this applies for many things. I guess one example that you could use for this as a symbolic for blaming would be cheating. So let's say, for example, you cheat on your spouse. So let's say the husband cheats on the wife. And then you ask the husband, why have you cheated? And he says, oh, because she wasn't doing this or she wasn't doing that, that she had to be better. Of course, that is directly shifting the blame, like in here. So anyone who says, oh, I wouldn't have done what he done, no, you're a liar. You would have. You do it in your everyday life. You do it in certain things. Blaming others instead of yourself for the mistakes that you have made is one, lacking accountability, and two, shifting the blame like exactly they have done. So specifically with cheating, you shift the blame from the mistakes that you have made to the other person by saying, oh, they should have been better, they should have done this or that. No, it's still your fault. It's 100% your fault. So, of course, it is Adam's fault because he listened to Eve instead of God. So, yeah. So, the serpent deceived me and I ate, and Yahweh said to the serpent, he said to Satan, because you have done this, cursed are you more than any of the cattle and more than every beast of the field. What happened to Okay, well, they're more cursed than every other animal, which is pretty self-explanatory through this and here too. So on your belly you will go. So this snakes did have legs. They kind of do have legs still. If you actually do like look it up, like in their skeletal structures, they actually do have like little hind legs. Where is it? These. They do stick out, like obviously in the skeletal structure. Looks like that. That's a prehistoric snake skeleton, but it's more either they were physically out, like out in the open, and now they have like the little legs here. I wish I could find the skeleton. This is the one. Okay, this one specifically. This is the actual skeletal structure. It's not like it's fake. This is just reduced hind legs, so they're actually inside of them now. So yeah, they actually had legs. Oddly enough, they look more like lizards than anything. But yeah, so they did have legs. So now because of this, it's more like a shameful thing that now they're gonna be like riding around on their belly. Like imagine walking on your belly. That's embarrassing. Instead of having legs. So that's basically what it means. So it was literal. It's not a figurative thing. And dust you will eat all the days of your life. And this, of course, we know isn't literal because talks about this. This same phrase is in Micah 7:17, I believe, and also Isaiah 65:25 uses this phrase, and dust you will eat all the days of your life. It's symbolic for guilt, like shame, and being like humiliated, pretty much. It's humiliation all the days of your life. So yes, this is in Micah and also Isaiah. Now I'll put enmity, hostility between you and the woman. So between evil and good, the woman signifies good here, and between your seed and her seed, so those who are of evil and those who are of good slash righteousness. Then later, he shall bruise you on the head or crush you on the head. So he shall crush Satan's head. This is the first gospel, actually, which talks about Jesus crushing Satan on the head because this is also mentioned in other scriptures that Jesus crushed Satan's head. And you shall bruise him on the heel, signifying a wound, but nothing lethal, because of course we know that Jesus did die, but he crushed Satan on the head through his resurrection. So yeah. Then we move on to verse 16 with the woman to Eve. God said, I will greatly multiply your pain in childbirth. So the process of giving birth, so like that pregnancy process, will be painful and be greatly multiplied. And in pain, you will bear children as well. So at the end, giving birth will also be in great pain. Then your desire will be for your husband. So this could mean either one of two things. Either one, it will be in an authoritative standpoint that your desire will be for your husband. So basically, like wanting to like lead and be like dominating over the husband, which of course reminds me a lot of modern day feminism, but we move. And or it could mean the emotional longing, even in like bad situations, pretty much. So that emotional longing and desire will be for your husband, even in those, let's say, for example, toxic relationships. So even when things are bad and he's treating you like trash, your desire will still be from him, and he will rule over you regardless. So of course this isn't how marriage was at the beginning, which of course we looked at Genesis 2 for that. So now this is now tainted as a result of the fall. And of course Jesus redeemed marriage, but as of right then, that's how marriage looked like pretty much. Then to Adam, God said, because you have listened to the voice of your wife and have eaten from the tree about which I commanded you, saying, you shall not eat from it, cursed is the ground because of you. So because you have listened to Eve instead of listening to God, cursed is the ground because of you. So Adam isn't cursed, but the ground is because of his actions. So in pain or sorrow, you will eat of it all the days of your life. Of course, the guilt of what he has done. Both thorns and thistles it shall grow for you, and you will eat the plants of the field. First sign of agriculture that he's gonna have to, cultivate the land, and but it will be rebellious and not in how do you explain this, union with humanity, because of course the ground is now cursed because of him. So thorns and thistles shall grow out for you, and you will eat the plants of the field. By the sweat of your face you will eat bread till you return to the ground, because from it you were taken, for you are dust, and to dust you shall return. So by the sweat of your face you will eat bread. So hard labor, that's the only way you eat bread just to survive, till you return to the ground. So until you die, first signification of death, because from it you were taken, signifying his origin in Genesis 2, that he took the man from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life. I believe that's verse 7 in Genesis 2. For you are dust, again, signifying his origin, and to dust you shall return. So you don't go to heaven when you die or hell, you go to the ground. you go to Sheol, which of course I'll make a video on about what happens when you actually die. But for now, just know that you don't go to heaven or hell when you die. You go to the ground, to Sheol, where you are asleep, unconscious, until the resurrection. So yeah, then verse 20. Now the man called his wife's name Eve, so Adam calls his wife Eve because she was the mother of all the living. Then Yahweh God made garments of skin for Adam and his wife, and he clothed them. So this is where Eve gets her name. But also Yahweh God made garments of skin to clothe them. So even then, when they sinned, he showed mercy and compassion by clothing them. Then Yahweh God said, Behold, the man has become like one of us to know good and evil. And now, lest he send forth his hand and take also from the tree of life and eat and live forever. Therefore, Yahweh God sent him out from the Garden of Eden to cultivate the ground from which he was taken. So he drove the men out, and at the east of the Garden of Eden, he stationed the cherubim and the flaming sword, which turned every direction to guard the way to the tree of life. So let's break this down a little bit. Yahweh God said, Behold, the man has become like one of us to know good and evil. So that part was true. But now, lest he send forth his hand and take also from the tree of life and eat and live forever. So Adam still could have ran to the middle of the garden and eaten the tree of life. He still could have done that. Therefore, Yahweh God sent him out from the Garden of Eden, so to kick them out, to make sure he doesn't eat from it. And a lot of people like to ask, or not even a lot of people, it's actually a pretty rare question, but I like to think of it as like, what would have happened if he ate from the tree? It could have been a couple of things, but like the main idea probably would have been that he would have lived forever, but eternally separate from God, like eternally living in sin because there was no redemption ever. He would have just been living in sin forever. So and of course, if death didn't exist, there would be no timeline, no genealogy for Jesus, of course, and of course, his redemption. He had to die to bring himself back to life and create the redemption that we all know and love today. So, of course, death literally has to exist. This is the first example of providence that God uses to take good out of bad. So, of course, death is bad, but God uses it for good, especially for the resurrection of Jesus. So, yeah, if he ate from it, he would have just lived eternally like in sin, eternally separate from God. So it just nothing good would have came out of it. He would just live forever in sin, and there would be no redemption for humanity ever. So God kicked them out, and yeah, he drove them out, and he stationed the cherubim, the angel, or a angel, and the flaming sword, which turned every direction to guard the way to the tree of life. So now the Garden of Eden is protected. Is it still on earth and being protected today? I honestly don't know. Was it taken up to heaven? Probably, maybe, because it also talks about Revelation that Jesus gives to his people the tree of life to eat from so that they do become immortal or live forever, are granted eternal life. So, is the tree of life literally is it in heaven? I mean, that's probably the best guess. But people also like to say that it was taken away from through the flood, which later happened with Noah. But I don't think that exactly happened because we still have the tree of life, unless God just made another, but nowhere says that. So I don't know. But most likely went up to heaven, but it's not really like that important. But just yeah, just like a little like fun fact. But yeah, the Genesis 3, it is pretty short. Actually, it's not as short as I thought it was, but it is pretty self-explanatory in the way that these things happen. First, Satan questions what God has said, plants a little bit of doubt in Eve's heart, and of course, Eve reaffirms what God said, but he lies, saying, "You will surely not die, and you will be like God." So, of course, those were the two big lies. Eyes were opened and they knew good and evil. That part was true, but of course, it wasn't exactly a good thing. So, Eve became tempted. She saw that it was desirable to make one wise. She wanted to become like God. So she took from the fruit and ate. And she also gave to Adam and he ate. So both of them, their eyes were open. So they knew they were naked. They were full of shame and guilt. So they ended up not becoming like God, obviously. And they covered themselves. Then Yahweh God was walking, um, asked where they are. And then, of course, the blaming happens. I talked about this. Everyone would have done the same thing. Of course, Adam is a representation of all of us. There's not a single person besides Jesus who would have not taken from the tree of good and evil. Everyone would have. So, yeah, then is the curseds. So, snakes are now on their bellies, no longer on their legs. First, gospel that Jesus will crush Satan's head. And then then talks about childbirth being now very painful as a result of the fall. And to Adam, hard labor is now forced as a result of the fall because now the ground is cursed. So struggle just to survive. Then the naming of Eve. God still clothed. He still gives mercy even when we don't deserve it. Of course, when we sin. Then God kicks them out because he doesn't want Adam to eat from the tree or eat from the tree of eternal life. So yeah, he kicks them out so they don't eat that. Then he stations a cherubim, an angel to and the flaming sword to protect the tree of life. So probably taken up to heaven is my best guess. So yeah, the Genesis 3. I hope you guys enjoyed. Yeah, be here for the next video. Hopefully soon. I do try to upload faster, but can't seem to do it. So my bad. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed, like I said, and catch you on the next video.